Talent Talk series. I am joined today by Lindsay Murdoch. She and I know each other very well from our interactions over the last few months since I joined Oakleaf, and very much an Oakleaf friend, I would say. So today we're talking about resilience, and this follows on nicely from a conversation I had with Eunice Clements-Tweedy from Lego surrounding where she talked about standing out from the crowd. These are topics that we are all talking about a lot, is how to stand out from the crowd and how to be more resilient in a time which is really challenging for us all. So before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Thank you. I have worked in business transformation and change management for probably the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
And I do that through my own company, Interconsult. We look at businesses through a discovery process, work with people on their business challenges, and then start to build programs for them. And we can stay and help them deliver those programs or pass that on to the people that we've been working in the organisations. So I can do that as an advisor, doing the upfront discovery, or myself or some of my team can go in and work as consultants with the client and the organisation. Part of that is the people strategy, because you can't actually transform a business unless you have all of your people on board. And I draw heavily on that in terms of my HR background and experience.
Fantastic. And transformation and change is something that we're going to see quite a lot of, I think, in the next few months as business get back to some sort of normal. So, you know, I think you and I talked about resilience being a topic that we were going to cover because I think it is an important topic. Why do you think it's such an important topic right now?
See, I think with COVID-19, without just stating the obvious, quite a lot has changed. And almost overnight, folks had to start working from home, or indeed in industries like leisure and manufacturing or transport, they actually couldn't work at all. And of course, that's brought such uncertainty to people's lives. And I think one of the things we've learned from that is really about mental and physical well-being, and that organisations need to actually help support people in that, not just pay lip service to it. We all had to suddenly do digital.
Yes.
And, here we are doing a virtual meeting, doing the recording, and people perhaps had been a little hesitant, or organisations hadn't actually given people the right tools and technologies, and we had to learn to adopt that overnight.
Yes.
But not having that face-to-face interaction and not being able to sort of meet up and pick up those signals that people give in terms of how they feel, in my view, is contributing to some of the perhaps lack of well-being that people may be suffering. And if you're like me, and sometimes you spend all day on Zoom or team meetings, it's very, very tiring. And you have to think about how you're going to cope with that sort of environment. If you couple it with people being on furlough, people being made redundant, all the uncertainties that brings, and how do people, continue to support themselves and their families. And I have to say, from some personal experience I've had recently, when you're looking for your next role, you might be one of 1,000 applicants for an opportunity. And whereas pre-COVID, you might have thought that you would, at least get the conversation with the recruitment organisation, you might not even hear back. So there's a lot of uncertainty that we're all facing. And some of that is breeding some fear due to that uncertainty in terms of, what's going to happen next. So I think what we need to be doing is really drawing on our inner selves and our resilience to actually help us work our way through that.
Yeah, definitely. I think resilience is something that we're all trying to draw on at the moment. But to what extent do you think people recognise resilience in themselves?
To some extent, I'm not sure that people understand 100% what it is.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we just sort of pause a minute to consider that.
Yes.
So in terms of sort of my definition, it is about, looking at things that are happening to us, like change or uncertainty, ambiguity, and working our way through in terms of how we manage and cope with that. So drawing on our inner resources to actually turn that change into something that is positive, and to work that through to come out the other end, as it were.
Exactly. So resilience in, so it's drawing on our inner resources. Do you think people recognize those inner resources? Do you think they even know what they're doing? They're doing it when they are,
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And I think the answer in a lot of circumstances will be no.
Yeah.
So somebody might be faced with something that is challenging, upsetting, something that they don't quite know how to work their way through, but they will find a way to work through. And they'll come out the other end and perhaps be a bit amazed with themselves in terms of how they dealt with it. Yeah. And will not necessarily put a label on it and say, oh, how resilient was I? But actually they've been instinctively drawing on mechanisms inside themselves to help them deal with it.
Yes.
I think those people that recognise resilience and how they deal with the uncertainty and ambiguity are probably people that are the most self-aware and have what we call emotional intelligence. Yeah. And I'm not saying that not everybody is capable of having emotional intelligence, but there are different degrees of it. And when you perhaps are self-aware and do have that emotional intelligence, you can perhaps plan your way through difficult situations that others might not. So you face into the change or the challenge or whatever is happening to you, and you have to learn to accept that. Yes. And I find that once I can accept what's happening, then actually I can better deal with it.
So I suppose that whole recognizing resilience in themselves should, when you reflect and say, wow, wasn't I resilient there? It's probably reflecting further and saying, how was I resilient? And therefore, how can I use that again next time I go through a challenge?
Absolutely. It really is about learning and then sort of developing. And I think in terms of how your brain deals with positive and negative circumstances that it finds itself in, that you can actually train your brain to be managing difficult circumstances better. But you do have to sit back, reflect, understand what was going on and what you did to deal with that and the impact of that, to then actually help your brain recalibrate itself to pull that out again next time.
Yes, so it takes practice and recognition, I suppose. So we've been talking about this before, but as a job hunter, resilience is vital. During pandemic, we've had to be resilient, but this is so important in the workplace too. So what advice can you give to our network to help them enhance their resilience?
I do think there is something about understanding yourself. Really understanding yourself and taking stock of where you are, both physically and mentally. And people might think, well, that's a bit of a fussy thing to do because you've got to plough on and deal with this thing. Yeah. But it's like any project or program, actually, you have to stand back, take stock, work out what's happening, what you need to do, and then plan how you're going to move forward. So really sort of work out what it is that you're trying to or you need to achieve. I really think that, there is so much power in networking and cultivating relationships, not only in terms of how you might move yourself forward from a career point of view, but in terms of learning how other people might have coped with things and are managing things. And you might even set up a small network, as I have done, of people in a similar situation where weekly we have a call and we discuss with each other, what's going on and how we're doing it. I also think that if anybody's like me, and hopefully they're not, that you want to charge on and just spend every minute trying to resolve your situation. But there is something that I think is really important about creating a balance. You need to exercise, you need to spend time with the family, you need to play Scrabble or whatever it is that helps you sort of exercise and get that balance in your life. And not to be sort of sitting there sort of punishing yourself in terms of, you know, how did I get into this situation or whatever, but just, you know, work your way through. And what I would say, and I'd like to leave people with, is about really recognizing what an amazing person you are and what you have achieved, and therefore how you can go on and achieve so much more.
Brilliant. What a nice way to finish that off, because it's so true. And I think we forget that sometimes, don't we, when we're in a bit of turmoil. Thank you so much. That is such a lovely way to finish off this call. I can't wait to share this with the network. Thank you very much for your time, Lindsay. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.